Man, oh man, that was rough. Welcome back in, everybody, to the Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Show. I am your host, Rob Payton. Joined with me is my co-host, Seamus Arlengo. We are back. Ugly one. Ugly one tonight on the road in Indiana for the second night of or the second game of a little two-game mini series there on the road for the Celtics against the Pacers. They were defeated in a controversial ending, 133 to 131. We got a lot to talk about, Seamus. A lot of good that the Celtics did tonight. No Jason Tatum on the road with a little right ankle sprain management, along with Sam Hauser. He missed tonight. Pacers without Halliburton down the stretch as he went down with a strained groin, an ugly looking injury. We hope the best from him. You never want to wish injury upon anyone. Hopefully he can get back to action soon. However, controversial ending. We'll get to that. No doubt about it, Seamus. Celtics, they dug themselves into a hole here. They kind of controlled for a little bit of this game. It was back and forth, as you can see. Their biggest lead got up to as much as 11 as we take a look at the game tracker. And then from there on, it was kind of back and forth. And then the Pacers ran away with it through that late third quarter, early fourth quarter, as the Celtics were trying to mount a comeback, but they really just could not close the gap down the stretch. Seamus, before we talk about the call, your initial thoughts, your reactions on the Celtics' close loss tonight.
Well, my mind is officially boggled at this point in time at the NBA universe and the Celtics game tonight in Indianapolis because, I mean, an hour ago was all good, right? We were enjoying NBA basketball, Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton was still healthy. Ja Morant was still healthy. The Celtics had a 9-point lead at halftime in this game. I think it was all good about 2.5 hours ago in the NBA world. But now, oh my goodness, this game was a complete travesty all the way from the Tyrese Halliburton injury. We don't have no idea how long he'll be out for. It was diagnosed as a hamstring strain. However, it looked way worse than that out on court. And subsequently, the Pacers, looks good for them because they were able to battle back and find inspiration from that moment after being rattled. But the Celtics, this is a game you should win. Even without Jason Tatum in the lineup, the Celtics had enough to win this game. Even, like I mentioned, had a 9-point lead at halftime, completely blow it in the third quarter. And then down the stretch, I mean, we can say a lot about this from a standpoint of the Celtics had a lot of opportunity to win this game, but there were some calls in which I don't know how one could agree with any of them. If you're just looking at it from an objective basketball sense, Jaylen Brown was fouled and should have been going to the line for two. That eventually was handed to Benedict Mathurin after Porzingis supposedly fouled him at the end of the game. And I just think that right now, I mean, my brain is just all over the place after this game, after the news we just received over the Twitter universe. And oh my goodness, this has turned into one of those NBA nights that us Celtics fans specifically don't want to see, but as well as some of the injury news that I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about right now. We don't want to see that either. Tonight is just one of those nights.
The Celtics, I think this third quarter problem is officially a little bit concerning for me. We no doubt about it got robbed. That ending was horrendous. You never want to see a game that was as entertaining as this one was tonight finish the way it did. However, the Celtics did not capitalize when they needed to capitalize tonight. They had two offensive possessions in which they could have taken a lead and they didn't. Jaylen Brown had a great look off a timeout in the mid-range pull-up. Not mad about that. However, that last shot, last play that did transpire, that was not the shot Jaylen Brown needed to take. There was an open Derek White at the three-point line, and there was a diving Kristaps Porzingis at the rim. There was too much time on the clock for that to be the jump shot. There was three Indiana Pacer defenders surrounding Jaylen Brown. The Celtics should have had the last shot there. You cannot put yourself in a position to allow the refs to dictate the game. As bad as the refs were and as bad as those calls were, the Celtics dropped the ball tonight, and that's just the truth, Seamus. I mean, this is one of those games you're going to look back at and say, it's frustrating, no doubt about it. But these third quarters continue to be a real problem. It was a problem that went away for a course of time throughout December. But if this continues to happen, the Celtics will continue to put themselves in positions to lose games. We saw it against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and we saw it tonight. This is a game that the Celtics probably won through 3 out of the 4 quarters. It's just that third quarter continues to haunt the Boston Celtics. They need to come out with a much more ready to go mindset out of the half. The teams are now getting a grasp that the Celtics are vulnerable in that third. If you're in striking distance in that third quarter, you can beat the Boston Celtics. And this is starting to happen. Like I said, we saw it against Oklahoma when they took a 9-point lead, or I believe a 1-point lead, or it was in their in striking distance at half, and they pushed that lead all the way up to 17. And then the Boston Celtics try to crawl back, they try to climb back, and then an ending that was wild towards the end. They came short, similar to tonight. Was it a bad call? Absolutely. Should the NBA, look into these types of calls and referees ruining what could have been an awesome overtime, or could have been an Indiana Pacers opportunity to win the game at the buzzer at home? They took that away from us tonight. Terrible, no question. However, the Boston Celtics, they need to be better. They do. Their execution has been good down the stretch. It has been. I thought the last 3 minutes were super, super solid up until the last 30 seconds, where Jaylen Brown obviously missed that mid-range, Seamus, and then took a bad shot on the baseline. However, Jaylen Brown can't hate too much because the guy was awesome tonight. He is tonight's player of the game. 40 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists on the game tonight on the road for Mr. Jaylen Brown, Mr. 304. How about this, Seamus? 40 points on 3 made 3 points, 4 attempts from behind the arc. That is super impressive for Mr. Jaylen Brown. He was awesome tonight, despite the rough ending for him. I'm not mad about that first shot. That's a shot you want Jaylen Brown taking. How was Jaylen Brown able to be so great tonight on the road, Seamus?
Well, first, the usage, of course. Without Jason Tatum in the lineup, it just gives Jaylen Brown free reign, or vice versa. Jason Tatum, if Jaylen Brown's out of the lineup, free reign to be the number one guy, because these guys do a really good job of leveling out the shots each and every night, because we've seen it most nights when they play together, which is pretty much every night. They know their rhythm at this point in the season, and that is a little bit of a grain of salt to be taken within this game, is that Jason Tatum did not play in this game. And I know the Celtics still had it handed to them on a silver platter, but no Jason Tatum tonight meant a lot of responsibility for Jaylen Brown. You saw it within his 26 shots, and he was efficient with those 26 shots. 17 made on the night. And guess what? 22 attempts from 2-point land tonight. Only 4 3-pointers, and he hits 3 of 4. We talked about this at the beginning of the season for Jaylen Brown, is that we want to see the ratio of shots be levelized to the point where he is taking a lot more 2s than 3s. Same thing with Jason Tatum. We want the ratio to be different, right? We don't want to see 50-50, 3-ball, 2-ball from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the way we've seen from the entire team as a whole. And tonight, look at the ratio here, 22-4 on 26 shots. That is incredible for Jaylen Brown, considering where he started this season and where he is at now. And the efficiency, it's really the minor margins in the game of basketball and the NBA, because look at his shot chart tonight. 17 made shots. Imagine a lot more of those attempts come from 3. Say 5 more come from 3-point land, and he goes 1 of 5, right? Well, all of a sudden, that's 4 less made shots on the night for Jaylen Brown, and then he's 14 of 26, still pretty efficient, but not as efficient, not as dominant, and not a 40-point game you see as he came away with tonight. And also 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Did have 5 turnovers on the night. Do want to mention the turnovers, want to hold them accountable, the Jays accountable for their turnovers. He did have 5 turnovers on the night, but again, that kind of goes towards the usage argument of there's more responsibility within his hands. On a normal night, we're probably not seeing 5 turnovers from Jaylen Brown anymore. There are some rare occasions, of course, on the schedule, but on most nights when most people aren't paying attention to the Celtics, Jaylen Brown is taking care of the ball quite fantastically. And tonight in this game, he was absolutely huge for the Celtics and even being in this game down the stretch. And he was, again, a tone setter for them at the start of the game. I thought tonight he was a tone setter, and throughout this season, he's been a tone setter to start games time and time again. And tonight, the Celtics really needed him to start the game and set that tone, because it was an up and down game early. It was 34-33 after the first quarter. The pace was high, and it was even high in the second half too. And Jaylen Brown bringing the Celtics within that play style, I thought he was huge in being aggressive, going towards the rim, and not settling for shots and not settling for, stagnant offense. We've seen with Brown and Tatum in the past, there are a lot of moments where the offense just becomes so stagnant between those two, but those really seem like problems way of the past now, 2 years ago of the past. And you see the development within their game. Jaylen Brown tonight just continues his streak of being aggressive. And I think it's safe to say that his little 2-game dust up there with Utah and Oklahoma City, where he didn't play too well, didn't look too aggressive, the ratio of shots, it was off. I think that was just a little bit of a fluke in the schedule. And I think Jaylen Brown from here on out, we'll see a lot more of these type of games, being efficient, probably, like I said, too, with the lesser usage with Jason Tatum coming back into the lineup eventually. But this is the type of game from Jaylen Brown I think we're going to see moving forward.
He's been awesome, man. He has really been awesome this season. Super aggressive. He's been the one constant at getting to the rim and setting a tone, I think, for the Boston Celtics this season. And he did it again tonight. He played a phenomenal game. He got to his spots. There was really no one on the court that could stop him. Obviously, the last shot just didn't go his way. And I think that there were some factors. This was a weird game. When you take away the two best players from each team playing in a game, I think anything can happen. As stacked as the Boston Celtics are, credit to Indiana, because they came to play and they shot lights out, Seamus. I mean, when a team shoots 48% from behind the arc at a 20 made 3-point clip, shooting 40 is really tough to beat them. And we played into Indiana's hand tonight. That's what they do. Indiana is at their best when the game is fast and there are points being scored. They are 0-10 this season, I believe the graphic said. When they score 115 points, they have not won when they don't crack 115. So that really shows where and how to beat Indiana, and the Celtics weren't able to do that. Indiana was making their shots, and at the end of the day, it's a make or miss league. And for the miss aspect, the Boston Celtics free throw shooting continues to be a problem for them. Tonight, 9 missed free throws in a game in which you lose by 2 is going to haunt you. The Celtics need to take advantage of those easy points. They are called free throws for a reason. Brissett 3 of 6, Brown 3 of 5, Cornette 3 of 4. It's just stuff like that adds up. Mihailuk 2 of 4, who quite frankly I don't think should have seen the court tonight. Shvi had a rough game.
The fourth quarter?
Yes. Yeah.
That was a little odd. It was like we need something. Here, Mikhailu, go play out in the fourth quarter after we have not played you the past month. I mean, seriously, the last time he played a consistent role, I mean, I can't think of it. I can't think of a time in which he's played outside of garbage time. And Joe Mazzulla threw Svi Mikhailu into the game at the start of the fourth quarter with the Celtics. It was like, I believe we were down 2. We were down 2 at that point.
Yeah.
Risky move.
If you take a look at the box score and how that went down, Pritchard only played 23 minutes. And I thought this was a game where Peyton Pritchard was really exceeding it. And Pritchard's been great this year off the bench. He really has. And this was a game I would have loved to see Peyton Pritchard crack the 30-minute mark. You should rely on that guy because he continues to provide off the bench, especially in a game where Sam Hauser's unavailable for you. And that 3-point shooting off the bench really gets thin once Hauser's out of the lineup. Pritchard should be your guy. You should use Peyton Pritchard as your core 6-man. And I think 23 minutes for Pritch is awfully low. I thought, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 5 of 6 from the floor. I thought we should have gotten Pritchard some more looks tonight, and I think we should have let him facilitate a little bit more because he was great. And the starters were great. Don't get me wrong. White had a rough shooting game, which again happens. It's a make or miss league. In 82 games, you're going to miss a good amount, right? You're not going to make every shot you take. And White was 4-16. He continues to play such a crucial role. So even still, when he's not making those shots, he's finding a way to contribute. Drew Holiday, Seamus, was awesome tonight. Absolutely awesome for the Celtics. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 56 from the floor, 50 from behind the arc, 3 turnovers. Obviously, 3 turnovers is kind of where you'd like to see be below that when you're taking care of the ball. You'd really like to have a better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, especially as the point guard. But Holiday was able to kind of keep the Celtics steady, and it felt like every big shot he needed to make, he did make. I guess the question goes is, in a game like this, Seamus, where you don't have Jason Tatum, and there will be more games throughout the course of the year where they don't have Jason Tatum, who needs, outside of Jaylen Brown, who needs to step up? Because we saw tonight, guys did step up, but it wasn't enough. Defensively, they weren't there. Where do the Celtics go when it's not Tatum and it's not Brown and it's right, and you got to go somewhere else? Are these guys capable, and where do you go?
To me, they go straight to their play style with Jason Tatum. That's where they go, because I think if you look at last night's game, of course, Jason Tatum did play, or rather 2 nights ago, whenever the last time we played in Indiana was, right on Saturday. That game versus tonight's game, Indiana scores 101. We don't even crack the 120 mark. And it really feels like a game in which we dominated defensively and played our play style. Offensively, the Celtics were playing at their pace and playing at their style. Well, tonight, once Tyrese Halliburton went out of the game, and even before he was out of the game, when he was in the game, the Celtics were playing at the Pacers' pace. And then he goes out. The Pacers just ramp up the pace 2 times on us. And we don't really catch it in the third quarter. We kind of fall back a little bit, and then we're not really playing at our pace. We found a lot of great offensive possessions where we found buckets at the rim, found open opportunities on the perimeter. And like you said, Pritchard and Holiday, I thought they were both great tonight. And I'm surprised to see that Peyton Pritchard only came out with 23 minutes, because it felt like his presence was a lot longer than that in this game. And certainly from his stat line, you can see that as well, with 14 points. And I believe he had 14 points sometime the early portion of the fourth or into the third. So it wasn't too much of Pritchard going on in the fourth quarter, when I felt like, I agree with you, there probably should have been more of him, especially in this matchup where you can actually play him against TJ McConnell, who's the same exact size as him. I mean, later
it's probably his best matchup.
Right.
Probably his best matchup is TJ McConnell.
In the entire league, if you look at Peyton Pritchard and the player he is, you want him to be a TJ McConnell. That is what the Celtics want him to become. I mean, that's pretty much the archetype of player that you want Peyton Pritchard to become. So playing him against TJ McConnell only makes sense. And we did see him for 23 minutes tonight, but in a game with no Jason Tatum, I thought you could have seen him more. But I do believe the Celtics, they didn't really feel like they were playing at, it didn't feel like they were playing at their pace, didn't feel like they were playing their style of basketball. And their style of basketball is getting defensive stops and then turning it into offensive opportunities. And this game was really, all right, you score, now I score, now you score, now I score, now you, and the Celtics were just not getting after it defensively in that way and just playing to the high pace of the game. So I think when Jason Tatum is out, ultimately, it's not who do we go to, because we see tonight, Jaylen Brown, 40 points, that's clearly our number one guy. And then after that, everybody falls in line from where they typically are after Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, if both of them play, of course. And you just want to play your own play style, because I thought that's what really killed the Celtics tonight. At some point in this game, after Tyrese Halliburton went out, it did look like the Celtics were going to win this game. And the Pacers, they just turned up the heat. They turned up their play style, turned up the pace. Celtics just couldn't get enough defensive stops. And that's part of the Pacers' game plan in the regular season. We talked about why this likely won't work in the playoffs, but this is the kind of game that the Pacers want to snatch from other teams. And maybe in other seasons, if they're not playing with the same pace, with the same team, they don't win a game like this.
It was a battle of the benches. I mean, the Pacers had 66 bench points, and the Boston Celtics had 27. So the bench got outscored. And again, it's tough because the bench isn't and shouldn't be asked to high volume scores. Pritchard getting 14 off the bench should be exactly what the Celtics need. 14 from Pritchard and then a combined like 15 other points should be exactly enough for the Celtics to, again, I mean, the Celtics scored 131 points tonight. So offensively, it was there. They were, getting to the rim. The Celtics shot phenomenal from behind the arc, 48%. I thought every three was a great three. They took 35 threes. They made 17. I mean, that's really the number I personally think the Celtics should be trying to hit every game, is that 35 to 38 range in attempts. They did that. So I think defensively, again, Indiana was able to play their brand of basketball, and I think you saw that with the Celtics' inability to get stops down the stretch. And again, the missed free throws, those are big. Those are big time for the Celtics. I mean, you miss your free throws and you don't get stops, you lose basketball games. That's common knowledge, I feel like, Seamus. And again, it didn't feel like the Celtics, got beat this game. And it feels like that's been a common trend with the Celtics. And they only have 8 losses. They're still the only team in the league with single-digit losses. And again, it's one of those games where, and I know I keep saying this almost every loss, but I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's like, it's 82 games and you lose some of them. And it felt like tonight, Indiana came to play. Boston, obviously, without their Jason Tatum and their best player. And yeah, they could have been better for sure. And you would like to see them clean up those third quarters. But it's like at the end of the day, Indiana just played a good game and a solid game. And I think defensively, the Celtics just, didn't show up. And I didn't see any problems. And again, it'll be interesting because these next 2 games, Seamus, will be a tell for the Celtics, right? You got Minnesota at home after a blown bad loss. And quite frankly, I'm sorry for what's about to happen, Minnesota, because something tells me the Boston Celtics are going to let their anger out on a certain Western Conference team that, with already some pent up aggression, maybe with how that last game went in overtime on the road, where Anthony Edwards kind of, outdueled Jason Tatum. And then they're coming off this loss. And then they got Milwaukee on the second night of a back to back. So it's a tough stretch. And it'll be interesting to see how the Celtics handle these next 2 games, because obviously when you got Milwaukee on the second night of a back to back, usually the idea is you can kind of rest some guys with the mentality of, okay, whatever happens tonight, it's okay because we got Milwaukee on TNT the next night. But when you got Minnesota coming to town at home, top team in the West, undefeated, you haven't lost on the parquet yet. Both games are kind of high ticket, big price, must win games coming up for the Celtics. And it's a lot. It's a tall task. It's a lot to ask. But I do think they got to come out and they got to snag 2 in a row. They need to find a way to take care of Minnesota. And I'm going to say this, they got to blow them out. We need to blow Minnesota out, Seamus. We need those starters on the bench for the fourth quarter coming up for this next little 2-game stretch.
Well, the next couple of games is certainly going to be telling for where the Celtics are at, because a couple of them are pretty tough. You have Minnesota and Milwaukee right in front of us, and those are 2 teams that are right up. I mean, if you look at the top of the league standings, right, take out the conferences, just go with the league. Celtics number 1, I believe Timberwolves number 2, and Bucks number 3 right now. They've been kind of jockeying for position below us. I know the Celtics have been first forever now, but that's this week for the Celtics, and one of them is at home. And after this game, I want to loop back around to the free throw discussion, because when we were on your last post game, it was Ian, Franco, and Justin was here for a moment, but Justin was out in the middle of the ocean, and his connection, I mean, we couldn't get him. We were using hangers. We were using everything, right? And during that post game, we were saying, oh, yeah, the Celtics won by 17, and doesn't really matter that they missed a bunch of free throws. And to be exact, I believe they went 10 of 19 that game. So they missed 9 free throws on Saturday. The Celtics did against the Pacers. And we came into the post-game show and went, yeah, they missed 9 free throws. That's pretty egregious. 52%. That's college. That's high school stuff. But at least it didn't hurt them, right? At least it didn't hurt them tonight. Well, fast forward, right? Fast forward to this game, which unfortunately, second game of a 2-game set against the Indiana Pacers. And the Celtics from the free throw line tonight, 20 of 29. So they missed 9 free throws again. Fortunately, this clip is a lot higher. It's 69% Last time I checked, Gronk was not in the building tonight, so they were not trying to pay homage towards him. And they go 69% tonight, the Celtics do. Last game, they go 52% from the line. And if you just make 3 of these free throws, right? Three of the 9 they missed, which would not even put them at a percentage of, I don't even know if it would put them at a percentage of 80. They win this game. The Celtics win this game. And even down the stretch, I know we're talking about, oh, Jaylen Brown got fouled. Buddy Hield hit him on the head. He hit the ball, hit the head. Right. Well, we missed 9 free throws tonight. Jaylen Brown is, of course, a part of the free throw missing club on the night. And it's not guaranteed that we hit those free throws down the stretch in such a pressurized moment. And we can talk more about the call later on in time and about the opponents.
It was terrible
on the schedule.
It was terrible.
But the free throws tonight for the Celtics, if there's anything
Right.
the Celtics can control themselves and not, look at the refs, because we are going to talk about that call. Don't get me wrong. We're gonna look at that for a second. However, if there's something the Celtics can control themselves and put themselves in a better position to win, hit all of your free throws, or at least make 75%. Geez, 69% tonight, 52% last night. That's egregious.
Well, let me ask you something. Third quarter in free throws, common trends. If you were to say two Celtics problems, what's it been? It hasn't been the bench. It hasn't been Porzingis' health. Knock on wood, right? Everything, what really everyone thought it was going to be. It's been the free throws in the third quarter. Are these fixable problems, or are you kind of like, I don't know if they're going to be able to fix these?
For me, the free throw problem is simply variance / just sit in the gym and shoot free throws for hours. I mean, these professional basketball players, I can understand their lifestyle outside of the basketball court, and they have lives and families and blah, 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 right? But I don't understand. I'm going to pick on a player real quick, and he's been picked on so much in time, but I'm going to do it again here in 2024. You look at Ben Simmons, it just makes no sense why he doesn't have a jump shot, because he has access to an NBA facility 24 hours a day, every day. You can be in there all day, sitting at the free throw line, shooting. And some of these players, we somehow see they come out, they don't have jump shots, and the Celtics, they're not hitting free throws at all. And it makes you wonder, like, is there work being put in behind the scenes? Because you guys have a free throw line and a bucket to shoot at officially. Like, we're not talking about outside in the cold or anything. Inside a heated facility with hot tubs and a sauna, like all of this stuff, right? Food, buffet, all the good stuff. Well, is the correct work being put in when it comes to free throw shooting? I feel like a lot of guys are just naturally good at shooting free throws, and it's almost like, all right, well, cool, right? I'm just going to go up here and hit this shot. But it does take the constant repetition over time, over and over and over again. I think it's partially variance for the Celtics that they're missing so many free throws, but it's also just get in the gym, shoot free throws over and over and over again. That's such a simple thing for a basketball team to attain, especially an NBA team. But also the third quarter problems. I think we see a lot of these third quarter problems. What we see constants within them, in my opinion. And the constant we see is there's typically one player we're missing. It's usually Porzingis, Holiday. We might be missing Brown. We might be missing Tatum. Maybe even Horford will miss. One player will be missing. We'll go up against a young team that plays with a high pace, high energy, and we'll kind of grab a lead and feel like, okay, well, tonight we're going without Tatum. We're going without Brown, Horford, Porzingis, Holiday, whoever's not out there. Even some games in the past with Derek White, the team kind of feels as if, all right, we've come out here. We've established a lead without our main guy or without one of our guys, and now we're taking our foot off the gas pedal. And it's for some reason in these games where we just can't finish them against these young, high-paced teams. And I don't think it's necessarily a problem for the Celtics right now because of the environment, the losses, and these moments keep coming in. It's usually without one player. It's usually to a younger team. It's usually to a team that plays with high pace, high energy. And the Celtics typically do have a lead in these games. At a certain point in time, they had a 9-point halftime lead in this one. And I believe that later on in time against more hefty opponents that we'll see on national TV at home, teams we've seen in the past many, many times, like the Sixers, like the Bucks, And like the Heat, I believe that the Celtics will put forth a better effort in third quarters, like we've seen against different opponents in the past they've taken care of this past month. And I, I I'm I want to see this be better for sure with the Celtics moving forward, but I'm not necessarily worried about it because of the circumstances and because the playoffs are real far away and we still have many more tests in front of us. I will say if we come out this week and look completely flat against Minnesota, look completely flat against Milwaukee, then there's going to be some questions asked as to what's exactly going on here. But I think circumstantially right now, there are a couple things we can point at and go, well, that's going to be a little bit different when it comes April, come May in the playoffs against different opponents, and you're going against teams 7 times. I think there's some explanations that kind of give the Celtics some leeway right now, but
Right.
into the future, we're going to have to see these things improve. So it's like, all right now, put a pin in it, but if it doesn't quite improve or we see different results against different opponents like Milwaukee, like Minnesota, they're going to have to back up my statement here this week. Then we can start asking more questions.
I don't think the third quarters necessarily scare me because I think, again, I haven't seen it in a fashion. I mean, the Oklahoma one is pretty bad, but again, you have so much time to figure it out, and I still give them the benefit of the doubt that they are trying. They're still figuring this whole thing out. And a game when you don't have Jason Tatum, it's like, again, stock. How much stock are we putting into this game? Not a whole lot. However, the free throws, I don't know. That is a little concerning. It's a little concerning because over the course of 82 games, how much time do you really have to fix free throw shooting? I mean, on top of traveling, on top of practice, on top of game planning, I think the expectation and the basic guidelines in the NBA should be, yeah, you can make your free throws if you're not Shaquille O'Neal or Dwight Howard or one of those big guys, where it doesn't really matter because their production far outweighs their missed free throw shooting. So it's like you've seen players, Seamus, make careers out of free throw shooting. That should not be a concern for a team that's trying to win an NBA championship.
I think personally that it's just something you do. It's like you either make them or miss them. I think, what I said earlier about just the constant repetition of shooting free throws over and over and over again. If we just look up and down the roster, it's only going to be a couple guys in the playoffs that really have to hit big free throws in crucial moments. It's going to be Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Al Horford, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Those are going to be the 6 players who likely have to hit free throws down the stretch. And I will say one player who's been particularly iffy at the line his entire career is Jaylen Brown. And that's just kind of a caveat at this point within his game that he's going to be a little bit shaky at the line. He does have a couple of nights in which he'll go perfect, but you see tonight he was part of the missing club. He missed 2 free throws out of his 5, and he could have had 42 tonight. And it goes along with everybody else. O'Shea Brissett missed 3 free throws tonight. I believe Cornette, a little less ice in his veins, and melted just a little bit tonight. He missed 1 free throw on the night. I'm gaslighting Luke Cornette. He was 2 of 2. Sorry, Luke Cornette. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, I might be looking at the wrong game. I am.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, Luke Cornette. I was looking at the wrong Pacers game. My bad. So yeah, some of that ice maybe melted just a little bit. And Steve Mikhailou, who's 2 of 4 from the line. Kristaps Porzingis, he missed a free throw. And Jason Tatum, I feel as if every time he shoots a high volume of free throws, whether it's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 free throws in a game, he's always good for a miss or 2. It typically feels he's always good for a miss. And it's just really one of those things you do. It's you either make them or miss them, constant repetition in the gym. And you hope the variance plays out with on your side, because this can't be a problem for the Celtics in the playoffs. They can't be missing 9 free throws.
It just can't. Well, okay, so I guess it's time, right, where you got to talk about the final play, the missed call, because I mean, we're going to take a look at it here in just a second, but again, something I do think that I want to make clear as a Celtics fan, and definitely as a Celtics fan, that one, I think I'm considered pretty level-headed in these types of things. Again, the Celtics allowed themselves to be in this position. And I think something that bad officiating at the end of the game is one thing, right? And again, so more of my problem with officiating, Seamus, is the Joel Embiid's and James Harden's officiating, where it's constant throughout the game, and it really changed how you can game plan a basketball game, where you're constantly getting the whistle blown and you're constantly unable to, get a groove defensively, and you have to really change what you do defensively because you're scared the ref's going to blow a whistle. That's really more where my problem lies within this whole, officiating problem. But something like this, I am upset about. But a lot of my upset and anger is towards the Boston Celtics. I mean, you can take a look. We have an image and the video. I mean, it's a foul. It's a foul. If you hit a guy on the head, that's a foul. And especially how the other side in the other end went. I mean, it's a foul, no doubt about it. I mean, you saw what happened to Porzingis there. You saw what happened to Porzingis, right? I mean, it's a foul. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, uh, I don't know. I mean, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the video here. Um, and I mean, what do you before we look at the video? What do you think?
Wait a minute. Do we have the video queued up?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. I think personally, if you look at the replay, I think it's pretty clear that he hit him on the head. He hit the ball. He hit him on the head, and that's just what it is. I mean, this is one of those plays where they got it correct, right? They initially got the call correct because on the floor, they called it a foul. They called it a foul. Jaylen Brown was going to the line for 2, and then they reviewed it, and it was like, all right, the Pacers burned their final timeout to review it, right? And then they go over to their monitor. They look at it for 5 minutes, which is my biggest pet peeve in the entire NBA is games being stopped for 5 minutes down the stretch in the final minute of the game to just look at something over and over and over again that we can, if you're looking at it that many times, just make a determination. And somehow, some way they go correct. They make the correct call, and then they come back, they look at it for 5 minutes, and then they make the incorrect call. We can all see on the broadcast, it's right there in the head. And we're always told as well, if there's not conclusive evidence, right? There's not conclusive evidence to overturn a call. We cannot overturn a call. The referees cannot overturn a call. And somehow, some way, we all see him get fouled on the broadcast, right? We're all like, oh, that's clearly a foul. Okay, cool. We're gonna win this. What conclusive angle did they have to show? Oh, yeah, no, he didn't hit him. He didn't hit him in that because every single angle we had on the broadcast was a foul. I mean, that's a foul.
All right, let's take a look at the video. Let's take a look at the video.
Go ahead. Oh.
And that's his favorite shot. Nice shot. Put pressure on him because they don't get an easy shot.
Jaylen Brown front court is going to put it up. No good.
They call a foul.
They call a foul.
Not the block shot. Did he hit him in the head? That's the question.
Let's see who gets the ball.
This is probably going to be a jump ball because the whistle stopped the play. So it'll probably be a jump ball. That angle is tough to see whether it looked clean. Does he hit him in the head? Did he ever hit him in the head? See, what Jaylen Brown is claiming is that he hit him on the side of the head when he got the block. And if that in fact is the case, I won't like it. I don't know about anybody else listening to this.
Review. The backside defender, Buddy Hield, hits the ball. Therefore, the call on the floor has been overturned to a no call. Eminent possession was by Indiana.
So my biggest problem with this, right, is how he says, oh, he hits the ball. Sure, he touched the ball. But how about the contact to the head first? So so you can club a guy in the head and then touch the ball. The league rules states that if you hit the ball first and then follow through and hit the arm after, right? So if you're going for a block, swap ball and then hit wrist, no call, block. Something like this is like, okay, well, hold on. Wait a second. What? And then Go to the other end. I don't have the play on the other end, but if you play at the other end, what? So wait a second. You're going to overturn the call. If they called both of them foul, you're like, right? But it's like, okay, you're going to overturn one for essentially what was identical on the other end. It was an identical play. Either don't call both of them, which personally is my preference. You don't call the Jaylen Brown one. You don't call the Kristaps Porzingis one. That's my preference. Let the end of the game play out how basketball is supposed to be played out. But if you call one, then you have to call it on the other end. So you call it on Porzingis, you have to call it on Jaylen Brown. The second that call gets overturned means that you let the Boston Celtics play out the finale, unless it is blatantly obvious. Unless you can say, oh, foul, right? You just know it. Oh, foul. But the fact that, oh my God, it's up in the air, could have been a foul, couldn't have not been. And then Porzingis, same thing. Could have been a foul, could have not have been. It's like, well, where's the logic in that? How does that make any sense for anyone?
It didn't make any sense. And this is, I watch the NBA every single night. There are games in which I think are officiated great. Okay. There's not enough praise for games that go off without a hitch and everything is officiated on both ends of the floor equally. And the game is called consistently, because I think that's what we all want, is the game to be called consistently. And what you're talking about right now, what we're both expressing grievances for, is that this was not called consistently whatsoever. On one end of the floor, you have a clear foul, they call it, then they go to review it after a challenge and go, oh, wait, sorry, we're actually going to make the wrong call now. That's not a foul. And then on the other end of the floor, they're going to go and review that and then call that a foul. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever that they officiated the game in such a manner down the stretch, and really if you really think about it, the refs, they had all to do with the outcome of this game after the teams played up until 131. After 131, we can talk about the Celtics before 131.
Right.
After both teams strike 131, the referees determine what happened in the game, because I will say, I think they shouldn't have given Jaylen Brown the call initially down the stretch because of his bad play. Okay, Jaylen Brown dribbled into 3 defenders, completely missed Derek White, wide open, wouldn't have even been a conversation. We would have been sitting here talking about, ooh, that would have been a good look, Derek White. We would have either been talking about overtime right now or a Celtics game winner. Instead, we get this controversial call that goes down. And then, of course, on the other end of the floor, have to rely on our defense, and we get hosed on that end. And I will say the Celtics, Jaylen Brown could have potentially, with one pass, affected the game for the Celtics, surely.
Right.
But the 2 calls, how they were officiated at that point in time, right? At that point in time, after Jaylen Brown's drive, I don't think they should call that on Jaylen Brown. And if they plan to call something on the other end, you better call an actual foul on this end of the floor, because that was a foul. That was a foul. I think if you're going to let things play out, you let things play out. But the fact they called it a foul, they go back and go, oh, wait, let's actually wait. Whoa, let's let things play out. And then on the other end of the floor, they go, oh, wait, sorry, well, let's not let things play out. It's one of those mind-boggling end-of-game moments that we've seen in the past with the Celtics before. We've seen these type of games where we don't want to see them is in the playoffs. We've seen these type of games in the regular season, in the playoffs, against inferior opponents, against the best opponents. And this is just going to be one of those type of games that in a couple days we're going to forget about, because we're going to go on and face Minnesota, and something's going to happen in that game for us to come on here and talk about that game again. And we're going to completely forget about this call as time moves on. But for the time being, the way the refs controlled the game at a certain point after both of the teams got to 131, you don't want to see that as an NBA fan. You don't want to see that at all. And I think Pacers fans would be saying the exact same thing if they were on our side.
And this has been a common trend all season long, has been the refs feeling like they have a need to just intervene within the basketball game. And it's just something that does not need to happen. I mean, listen, for some reason, there's a stigma around the NBA and for these refs that they need to be felt, that their presence in the NBA game needs to be involved, and the NBA needs to crack down on this because basketball, where it currently stands, is such a great product. It's high scoring, it's fast paced, the superstars are so well known, it's so entertaining, but then you have just the refs, right? And really, the players, I think, play a factor into it. It's not just the NBA. I think the complaining plays a role into how the refs to officiate games. You're constantly complaining at a ref. I think the ref is going to start to, have some resentment towards you. So I think the players need to be better. Excuse me. But I also think the league needs to do something because, again, if this was a playoff game, and we honestly saw it. I mean, throwback to Game 6, we got lucky that the Boston Celtics almost got eliminated out of the playoffs last year off a terrible ref's whistle foul. A whistle at the end of the game, again, Seamus, should only be called if it is so blatantly obvious. The end of the game needs to be basketball. Your team versus my team, your star versus our star. Best team, best player makes the winning play. Not because the referee thinks he sees a black and white potential gray area foul that they're going to blow their whistle because they feel like they need to leave their imprint in their footprint on the game. It doesn't need to happen. There's no place for it in the league. I think it takes all amazing value that is held within the basketball and the NBA. It is an awesome product. The stars are great. Every game is entertaining, and you're just having the refs absolutely dictate the outcome. Think about that. A ref dictating the outcome of a game. They should learn from Tim Donaghy. You can't allow this to happen because, quite frankly, I think it's just continuing to get too far between the technical fouls and the ejections with the star players and ticky-tack stuff down the stretch like this. It needs to be just don't blow the whistle. If you don't know, then don't blow it. If you're not positive, you can go back to that replay center and say, quick, yep, we're right. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it should be you go back to that screen and a minute max, you come back and say, yep, this call on the floor stands. Like, that's what it should be. Because quite frankly, I would much rather, as a fan, tie game, would much rather have the Boston Celtics on a ticky-tack miscall towards the end of the game. I'm okay with it. Ticky-tack, late game, they didn't call it, so be it. Seriously. I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Call games down the stretch, how they call games the entire way through, because so many times down the stretch, are they going to call that Jaylen Brown call even if he does get hit in the head on a normal possession? First of all, Jaylen Brown, this is kind of one of the it's really both sides, right? It's Jaylen Brown, it's the referees. It's like, all right, Jaylen Brown, from a possession standpoint, what the Celtics typically run, you can get a better possession and a better look, and you're not going to run into the corner on a normal possession. However, on a normal possession as well, for the referees, are they going to call that against Jaylen Brown? When you go to the replay, that they did call it, and they went to the replay. Clearly, it was a foul, but I think within the flow of the game, I would like to see the game just be left alone. Every single game just be left alone. The best games are when the game just goes and flows down the stretch all the way till the final buzzer. We don't need some kind of, okay, let's stop for 5 minutes, look at this, and the arena music goes off, and we have people dancing on the floor. Like, just it completely, to me, it ruins the flow of the game. And basketball is about rhythm and flow and continuously moving and going because it's possession, 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 possession. Teams are literally dictating how many possessions they have within a game and are wanting more and more possessions. If a team realistically said, yeah, I only want 50 possessions in a game, they could play at a pace that somehow gets them 50 possessions a game. But I think that would actually be like mathematically almost impossible with our shot clock and how each team would play. Like each team would have to play the entire shot clock. But in a game of pace like that, in a game of rhythm, to have these stoppages at the end of games, oh my gosh. It is just the last 4 years. I mean, really, last 3-4 years, I want to say that it's gotten bad. It's gotten bad. Now, from a free throw perspective, I feel as if looking at the numbers, not my feelings, right? This is just from statistical analysis. The entire league is taking less free throws, okay? The entire league as a whole, they're taking less free throws per game. But at the end of games, reviews, challenges, the stoppages, I feel are at an all-time high. And it just completely ruins the product of the game down the stretch. And I kind of thought about this with the NFL, because the NFL sometimes they will go to, trying to think of the pattern here. They will score a touchdown, go to commercial, come back for the PAT, and then go to commercial again before the kickoff to show more commercials. And I almost wonder if the NBA wants to show more commercials during the reviews, because all of these reviews will be sponsored by a certain product or a certain thing. And it's like, oh, look, it's the Dobbs tire review. Oh, look at this. And free ad, Dobbs. There you go. On the Celtics Talk Weekly broadcast, by the way. Would always be sponsored by something. And I wonder, does the league want to just insert all these sponsorships in the last moment of the game where everybody's tuning in? But at the same time, this is part of your product, NBA. This is part of your product that people, they want to come and watch end of games. We don't want to see guys drinking Gatorade. Literally, NBA, this has become a rant because I watch a lot of NBA basketball and I see it every single night. The end of games, the last minute of the game, there's about a minute worth of basketball play, right? About a minute, a whole minute, right? We have about 20 minutes of guys, Gatorade, water on the bench, coaches drawing stuff up. We got pixelated reviews did his hand touch the ball? We have no idea. And it's all right, let's watch this for 5 minutes. We have no idea. Let's watch it this slow. And it's can we just watch basketball? These guys are all going to get paid after the game. That's what it's about. You guys are going to show your sponsorships. Let the product play out. I don't understand why we have to get the calls correct, because you see from tonight's game, the Celtics and the Pacers, even when they go to review calls, they don't get them correct. So I don't understand why that's such a big point of emphasis, both in the NFL and the NBA. And I almost wonder if it's just a tactic to control the outcomes of these games, especially later in the playoffs. Game 6, as we always see it, 3-2. The team down 3-2 is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. And then, of course, ads, advertisements, all of these reviews, everything at the end of games, ad. It's all an ad. It's all sponsored. And I don't know. I think the
let me
NBA
just say
needs to
something,
rearrange their thought in this, because it does ruin their product. And it tonight's game is a perfect example of how it does and how we're talking about this game.
Statistically, and I heard JJ Redick talking about this, right? Statistically, with the free throws, the league's shooting probably 2 times more threes per game. So sure, there's less free throws being taken. But I bet if you were to look at when people are attacking the rim and when drives are happening, when and how much and the frequency of fouls on drives are being called. Sure, there's less free throws. Absolutely. But guess what? There's probably 40 to 30 more threes attempted per game now versus 15 years ago. The game's changed. So yes, they're shooting 5 less free throw attempts per game. But guess what? 40 more shots are going elsewhere outside of the paint. So it's the game has become less physical. Of course, there's less free throws. But with that should come, you know what I'm saying? It's sure, statistically it makes sense. But I feel if you use a little bit of a little bit of wait a second analysis, wait a second analysis.
You could have the role players, say 30, 40 years ago, the free throw count could be a little more equally distributed throughout the role players and the stars. And I think as a whole, it's okay, every team nowadays has a star. Even the Pistons have Cade Cunningham, who will get more respect than a normal role player. Even the Magic, they have Paolo Banchero, and he is really a star right now. He's only in his second year, but he is really a star. Other teams in the league, it's almost every team has a star. And I think that as a whole, role players, they never get the benefit of the whistle. And I think stars get the whistle all the time. And we see players like Joel Embiid, who sometimes shoot 20 free throws in a game. It's okay, you could say statistically, oh yeah, we're shooting less free throws and whatnot, but the stars in general, there are more stars, and the stars are taking more free throws, and the call distribution is not exactly. I mean, I shouldn't say it should be equal, because you look at the usage, you look at the responsibility, and you look how players get their points. But I will say stars do get the benefit of the doubt more often. And I will say you do have a lot of just general stoppages in games to accommodate certain things in basketball or within the NBA and the online media sphere, shouting out, oh, we need to get calls right, or, LeBron and all these stars, we need to be at the free throw line more. Like, we need our respect in the league. And it's like, do you? Like, just play basketball. Like, same with the reviews, just play basketball. Like, we don't need all these stoppages. Like, that's my main point, is that the stoppage and play basketball. And I think if players played more consistently and they let more plays go and more foul calls go, I think pace would actually go. It would reach an all-time high, and then it would start to dip again, because you would start to see teams be more physical, and also it would be the teams who are really in shape who will get to play up and down if they're not constantly stopping, looking at plays, shooting free throws. Like, that's a part of today's game and their pace. Like, players can play at this pace because they have more timeouts. They have more views. They have more challenge. The challenge wasn't even a thing 5 years ago at all. And I think in general, the stars are shooting more free throws as a whole. So it's like, well, if you want to draw a free throw as a team, throw it to your star, and you're going to get a stoppage in play. I think the NBA needs to certainly rearrange their involvement within the game, just period. Like, referees, we see this in the NFL too all the time, where take them out of the game. We need to be progressing on finding artificial intelligence ways, AI generated ways of refereeing ball games, both in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all of this. I imagine the reason why it doesn't happen is because all of these umpire and referee unions they're unionized, right? They have unions. And it's like, well, these guys technically can't be replaced or can't be fired without certain things.
I don't know. I don't think they should replace them with AI. I don't know.
I'm going so far on this, because AI, it's like, you make that call tonight, and it's like, what are you gonna argue with the robot? It's like the robot has the pixels. And instead it's like, oh, great, now we have to argue with a subjective human who, it's like, we don't know what kind of connections
who the league
emotional
protects,
who knows, he might have gone to the University of Notre Dame and grew up in South Bend, and he's like, well, I used to watch the Pacers in my dorm, but then I moved to New York. I'm not saying this actually happened, just completely hypothetical, but I will say that in sports, take the referees out of it for as much as they're in it, because I think football is particularly horrendous right now, where it's just like,
Holding.
Come on, let them play. Just let the guys play. And basketball too, down the stretch too. I will say, throughout games, I think some games do move smoothly. I will say this: referee crews don't get enough credit for games going off without hitches. But down the stretch, I don't want to see stripes. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see a review. I don't want to see stripes.
Right.
I don't want to see any of it. I want to see two teams competitively playing basketball. That is all I want to see down into the final buzzer. And we didn't see that tonight in Indiana. We saw 131. We saw a stupid shot, unfortunately, from Jaylen Brown. He had Derek White wide open for three. They called a foul call. They go, oh, sorry, never mind. And then on the other end, they go, oh, yep, we're going to call that one. And they control the game. It's like, yes, the Celtics could control it themselves, but it's ultimately up to the refs if they want to call that or not. And then on the other end, if they want to call it or not. It's not anything anybody wants to see.
Right. And before I close out here, something broke the NBA with news. I want to talk about that before we close out. Ja Morant, he has been diagnosed. He needs shoulder surgery. He will be out for the remainder of the NBA season. The Memphis Grizzlies obviously were missing Ja Morant for the first 25 of the games of the season due to that suspension, due to the social media video that Ja Morant put out on that live stream with holding what seemed to be a firearm in his hand after a first strike and first suspension. The second offense led to 25 games. The Grizzlies got Ja Morant back this season and were great with him. 6-3 in the 9 games that Ja Morant played for the Memphis Grizzlies. However, his season was cut short. Now, Seamus, this is interesting because now Memphis is in this super, super weird particular spot where they thought maybe they could have climbed back in and found themselves into the play-in and found themselves a good matchup in the first round and potentially made some noise. They were only 4 games back from the 10 seed Los Angeles Lakers. And once you get to the 10 seed, you're really not that far from the 8 seed. And once you get to the 8 seed, you're really not that far from the 6 seed. However, no Ja Morant kind of means the Memphis Grizzlies seasons are over. They are currently 13-23. They are the 13th seed in the West. They are 2.5 games ahead of the 14th seed Portland Trailblazers. Are they now potential sellers at the deadline? They got some guys on their team, and they have an opportunity where they could kind of reframe and rework this Memphis Grizzlies system. Obviously, they got Desmond Bane, who they just paid, Jaren Jackson, who they paid a season ago, Ja Morant. Those are the 3 cornerstones. But they just made a trade, Seamus, for a certain someone by the name of Marcus Smart, who used to be a Boston Celtic, who was supposed to be their key contributor to what could have been a potential finals appearance this year. Where are the Memphis Grizzlies at right now that Ja Morant has found himself out for the season?
Well, this is one of those situations where, I mean, I feel as if we shouldn't joke about this, but it can generate a ton of memes where it's like, oh man, they're completely out of it. And it's like, oh, we back. And then we're out of it again. Because for real, this is one of the most depressing stories in the entire NBA for this entire season. Because for real, Ja Morant misses 25 games. And I will say that didn't really make sense to me why he missed 25. Why not 20? Seemed like 5 extra games was going to teach him a lesson. I have no idea. But he misses 25 games with what I believe relative to the suspensions the NBA has given out and what happened. I think it was a little bit too long, a little bit too bogus. I don't know how effective, like I've talked about this many times, I don't know how effective it really was. And he misses all of that time, comes back. First game, it's electric. You can tell the Grizzlies completely playing with a different attitude. They have their attacker back in the lineup. And, of course, he hits the game winner in New Orleans. And the team starts off, I believe they were 3-0, 4-0. And then they were 6-3 through 9 games with him, beat the Lakers the other night. And it seemed like they were progressively moving up and up and up in the Western Conference standings to the point where, oh, yeah, if they could potentially be a 6 seed. And, if they make it into the playoffs, they have Marcus Smart, Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. That's a really good defensive squad. And offensively, they could have gotten it done as well. But it's like, oh, Ja Morant, he's now gone again. 25 games without him. It was a complete disaster. And there's really no reason. You could say Marcus Smart is back in the lineup, but there's really no reason as to why it shouldn't be a disaster again. Marcus Smart is really the one thread that you look at and go, maybe, but there are no star attackers, no legitimate players who can create their shot on the Grizzlies roster. And this is what just makes this injury so tough, is that if another team sustains an injury like this to a star, maybe there's another star right there taking his place, attacking. On the Celtics tonight, we don't want to use the Celtics as an example for the season, and we hope this never happens to the Celtics this season. But say Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, one of them go out. Tonight, Jason Tatum was out of the lineup. Jaylen Brown steps in, and he's our number one guy. He's our attacker. He scores 40 points. And I believe he could consistently put up this type of play every single night if he wanted to as the primary player. He's just not on the Boston Celtics. And the Grizzlies, after Ja Morant, you're looking at Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart as your primary ball handlers. Jaren Jackson Jr. isn't a guy who's going to create his own shot. And I just don't know how that team operates moving forward in a successful manner. And this one is just really, for me, it's one of the most depressing stories of the entire season, because not only is Ja Morant like the Grizzlies going to struggle and they're not going to reach their full potential as a team this season, but he is such an electric player who, if you're just an NBA fan, forget all the off-court stuff with Ja Morant. He is electric on court. And every time he plays, it's a good game. I've never seen a game where Ja Morant plays where you're not entertained at some point in the night and his team isn't competitive. So to miss that kind of player, to see that kind of player go out, I think it's depressing. It's sad. it almost makes you angry that players can come down. Like, you just want to be angry at injuries because it's like you can't prevent them, you can't do anything about them, but they'll just leave players on the sideline, leave guys on the sideline forever. And another player too, I hope these two players, Ja Morant, another player tonight, Tyrese Halliburton, we have no idea how long he's going to be out. When he was carried off the court, that looked like it could have been season ending. They said it was a hamstring strain, but I think they'll do more MRIs, more tests. I think it's going to be he's going to be out for a minute. I think he's going to be out for a minute. I don't think it's just like, oh yay, little sore hamstring strain. I think it's more of like he could have torn it. That's what it looked like. He did splits out there. And Ja Morant, he's going to be gone. I'm praying for him to come back next season, as we saw him before he left this season. And of course, Tyrese Halliburton too, to come back within this season if he potentially can, after what was a scary looking injury. And I thought that first ruined the night in Indiana, and then everything else we talked about, just weird night in the NBA. Weird night.
Yeah, it changes a lot, I think, for Memphis. No Ja Morant for the year, and it's different because you figure, all right, Memphis is the 4 seed, 11 games over 500. No Ja Morant, you figure, okay, let's keep this season on pace, right? You never know what can happen in the NBA. You don't know, maybe if they're 11 games over 500, it's not out for the season, right? Maybe it could return come April. But I do think that with no Ja Morant, that out for the season, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of this industry or the injury, excuse me. But I do think that maybe it was out for the season because due to their current record, I think these might be the sellers come the deadline. It'll be interesting to see. They are looking at a top 7 draft pick in the NBA right now, in a draft class that they could find themselves another key contributor. You figured you could shed the Marcus Smart contract and get someone who could potentially give you higher upside on a cheaper deal for 4 years, opposed to the Marcus Smart contract. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Memphis Grizzlies go. They obviously do have Derrick Rose roster. They have some pieces, some Luke Kennard. They got some guys that they could ship away and could be key deadline pieces, I think, as the season progresses. So definitely tough news. As an NBA fan, I can't imagine it for a Grizzlies fan. It's been a rough year for those guys in Memphis. And honestly, I feel bad for Marcus Smart because in the offseason, we, as Celtics fans, were at peace with the trade because we felt Marcus Smart was in an opportunity where he could win basketball games. So, it is rough.
We kind of felt a little bit like this as fans back in 2017 in some fashion. We'll say it's a little bit different, but we signed Gordon Hayward over the summer in 2017. See him play 6 minutes on opening night. Well, let's disclaim this. He did play 4 preseason games. Well, 3 or 4.
He looked awesome.
So he did play a couple of games before that injury. Played the preseason 6 minutes into opening night and goes down with the most horrific looking injury we've seen on a basketball court since then. I mean, the only injury that ever compares is Isaiah Cannon, and it was really the same injury later in the same season. And it was like, oh, look, Gordon Hayward's here, right? New free agent Gordon Hayward. And let's remind people too, we had been talking about Gordon Hayward since 2016. We had been talking about Gordon Hayward since the summer beforehand, before he was a free agent. We cheered for him at the Garden when the Utah Jazz came to town. He was in the starting lineup when he was announced. And then we signed him over the summer, 6 minutes into his official Celtics debut. Most horrific Celtics
changes
we've
the
ever
franchise course
on court.
Yeah.
And completely changed the trajectory of everything because Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum take over. We all know. And it was that feeling of like, wow, we have a star. And then he's just gone. And I remember that night is like, you don't know how to feel after losing a guy like that. And like there's going to be more basketball games. Okay. Like if you're covering the Grizzlies, if you're following the team, like as NBA fans, we follow other teams too. It's like, there's going to be more basketball games with this team. Somebody's going to have to finish out the games on the schedule for that roster. And to lose somebody like that, it's just horrifying. It's just absolutely horrifying, especially right after you get them or get them back. And I think we all know that as Celtics fans quite too well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Memphis does after this. Because the fact that they got a bunch of talent on that roster. It was a roster constructed to win this season and make a push, like I said, to be playing in June in the NBA Finals potentially. So it'll be interesting. But again, guys, Boston Celtics, they were defeated tonight in a rough one, 133-131. They will host the Minnesota Timberwolves at the TD Garden for the first night of a huge back-to-back, as they have Minnesota, obviously, on is that the 11th, Minnesota, or the 10th?
I think we have them on the 10th on Wednesday, I believe.
The 10th. All right, yes. So on the 10th, and then they got obviously Milwaukee right there on the 11th. It should be a fun one. However, guys, like I said, thank you so much for joining us in and watching us tonight for what was a controversial ending. But again, you can catch us live after the final buzzer sounds at the Garden for the Minnesota versus Celtics game. We'll have you covered back here. I'm Rob. Next to me is my man Seamus. Thank you